at the end of the all the presentation.
Okay. So then we'll move ahead, and I'll invite next panelist speaker for the day, Olga Anatolievna Ignatjeva. I hope that I have pronounced the name correctly. In case I have not, please do correct me while you come on the floor and speak. So I invite Olga, Associate Professor, Department of Political Governance, St. Petersburg State University, Russia, speaking on access to healthcare as a new dimension of inequality in terms of COVID-19. Yes, floor is yours, Olga.
Thank you a lot. Yes, you're correct. My name is Olga Anatolievna Ignatjeva, and I would like to speak today about the access to healthcare as a new dimension of inequality in terms of COVID. Actually, I have no presentation, so I will just tell, and please listen, and if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer it. So, social inequality remains the most important topic in the social sciences. Since ancient philosophy, the confrontation between rich and poor has not lost its importance. Nowadays, social inequality is taking on a new dimension. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated many of the contradictions in society which in a quiet time prefer not to be noticed. The global cultural phenomenon of the American dream is being cultivated in many countries to alleviate the sense of injustice to individuals. During the pandemic, it became clear that members of different classes and strata do not have equal access to social benefits. Access to medical services and the opportunity to purchase medicine were related to the availability of health insurance and sufficient amount of money. Unlike other aspects of inequality, access to medicine refers to such essential values as health and life itself. Survival of the poor during the crisis has become an equally important issue. I would like to say that quarantine restrictions were imposed in most countries, and business and public services were temporarily shut down. This has had the most negative impact on representatives of small business, which provide for themselves. In those countries where the government did not provide sufficient financial assistance to small business, the pandemic led to business destruction, inability of entrepreneurs to pay rent and pay salary to employees. The ability of individuals to survive the crisis was directly related to the availability of financial reserves that would have allowed them to stay out of business for several months. The crisis has also revealed other aspects of inequality, such as difference in access to power. In the press, there appeared materials about politicians and celebrities who called on the population to wear masks and observe social distance, but they did not do themselves the same, freely resting in golf club and other facilities accessible only to the elite. And of course, the elite received the best treatment in time. This has sharpened people's feeling that vote is unfair and wrong. The pandemic crisis also led to a rethinking of values. If in a calmer time, the main aspiration of individuals was symbolic consumption, acquisition of prestigious and branding things, in the period of pandemic, the awareness of life and health returned to the society. Millions of people unwittingly began to reconsider their views from the point of view of life meaning. The COVID-19 pandemic clearly demonstrated the meaninglessness of consumption values and the depth of the value crisis in the digital society. All the above aspects lead to a normative and value crisis in society, a state of anomie. The crisis that emerged unexpectedly led to a state of psychosocial tension conceptualized by sociologist Robert Merton as a state of anomie. The mismatch between the goals of an individual and the possibility of achieving them during the crisis refers not to income and consumptions, but to health and survival. The COVID-19 pandemic will lead to a significant increase in anomie. The increase in the level of anomie will inevitably lead to the growth of its consequences, such as deviant behavior. During and after the crisis, we will see an increase in crime, alcoholism, drug addiction, suicide, as well as an increase in number of deviant behavior. Psychosocial stress anomie warms up a feeling of discontent in society, and it is its cause. The cause of this discontent and unrest in society may be different circumstances. This may include discontent with the authorities, racial and national conflicts, economic conditions, and restricted access to medicine, which is perceived as an attempt on a person's right to live. During the COVID-19 period, anomie warms society and generates social instability, leading to explosion of discontent in society. To avoid this explosion, it is necessary to understand its source, to clearly distinguish the cause of the event and its cause. In order to overcome the consequences of this crisis, all states, first of all, need to allocate sufficient funds to ensure public access to medical services. At least they should apply to the most necessary medical services and medicine. The state should review its medical policy principles, promote the development of charitable organizations providing medical services. Any states, regardless of its market orientation, should have the resources to deploy mobilization type medicine that can provide treatment to millions of people in a short time. Besides medical aid, the state needs to provide people with opportunity to survive economic crisis. A positive example here it is the experience of Germany, where people who lost their jobs were provided with sufficient financial assistance for treatment quickly and without bureaucratic problems. Also, during quarantine restrictions, it is extremely important to provide people with quality food sets and to launch mass production of cheap masks. If these conditions are met, the state will be perceived as helping force, not only as a supervising and punishing one. This will soften the anomie and improve the social well-being of individuals. And in this process, a large business should remember about their social functions and also help people. This is all. If you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Olga.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you raised very pertinent points. So as communicated to me by the organizing team, we will have questions towards the end of all panel discussions getting over. Okay. So
okay, sorry.
Just be there, and definitely some questions will come across to you, because your presentation raised some very, very pertinent and important points related to the role of government, specifically in pandemic situation, and what government can do in order to ensure that there is welfare state getting created, which is definitely extremely meaningful for the citizens of the country. So hold on, some questions will come your way. Now I'll move ahead and will like to invite Alexander Vladislovic Litnev, Faculty of Sociology, Social Work Department, St. Petersburg State University, Russia. Again, Alexander, in case I have not pronounced your name, please do correct me. And please do introduce yourself a little bit more when you start with your presentation. Welcome.
Sorry, this is my co-author, and he is not today because he is at work now. So
okay,
it was our common report.
Okay, so I got it. I got it. Yeah. Okay. So I will invite the next speaker now, Mr. Ravi Ramachandran, who is Executive Manager, National Broadband Company, Sydney, Australia. And he will be talking about business transformation before and after COVID-19. I welcome you, Mr. Ravi Ramachandran. Floor is yours now.
Thank you, Dr. Smita, and thank you to WPC for giving me this opportunity. And it's good to meet all the fellow presenters in this forum. Now, just quickly a little bit about myself. So I currently work for National Broadband Network, and again, through my presentation, I'll actually talk to you about my role as well. But at a very, very high level, I look after business transformation for the organization, and the purpose of this presentation is to actually talk to you about business transformation, or the way we used to do business transformation pre-COVID and how it's happening right now, and what I have seen working in this industry for quite a few years. So that's just a bit of background at a super high level of what I do. I have a presentation, so I would like to take this opportunity to share my screen with everyone. Okay, I'm guessing everyone can see this. So, yep, like I said, it's business transformation before and after COVID-19. When we have a session on business transformation before and after COVID-19, I think the first and the most important thing to do is to actually define what it means. But now, this is an overused term, especially if you're in the consulting community, because every major consulting firm, every small boutique consulting firm will say, okay, hey, we offer transformation. But in the industry, a lot of people don't actually understand what it is. This is a definition that I really like that I got from Deloitte, which is one of the big four consulting firms. But it is the opportunity to define a bold ambition that goes just beyond normal incremental change, because every organization goes through change every day, right? But this is not that. So changing a small process, introducing a new system, that cannot be transformation. This is the opportunity to rethink your business, rethink operating models, and deliver breakthrough value for your customers. That is an example of transformational change. And this actually goes not just at an operation level, but initially it starts off at a major corporate board or strategic decision. And this affects everything from how the organization grows to it operates, what sort of performance metric will it be measured with, how do you reward and recognize people. It actually involves changing the fundamental DNA of an organization. Now, if you go through any history, any book, if you see, or even if you Google, okay, show me examples of successful transformations, these names will definitely be there. Apple. I mean, if you look at the history of Apple, it was a small dream for Steve Jobs, which started in his garage, just doing computers, and look at where it is today: mobile phones, and entertainment, etc. Netflix. Netflix actually evolved their business model from just doing rental DVDs to actually, looking after a full service entertainment option. Google, from a search engine to now cars, analytics, everything. Amazon, again, now they do entertainment, shopping, but initially it was just books. So all of these businesses, all these leaders actually had to fundamentally rethink their business. But with transformation, especially before COVID, people had the biggest luxury, and that luxury is called time. Because with any major change, and if you track the history of change across, and I'm talking thousands of years ago, every change took a long time to embed. Take the industrial revolution itself took close to 400 years to embed, right? And if you go before that, it took a much longer time to embed the change. But the change that started happening from the 1900s onwards happened much, much faster. Take the computer era, right? That change happened in under 50 years. The interesting fact is the mobile phone revolution actually started it started in 2007. And sorry, when I mean the mobile phone business, I'm actually talking about smartphones and how they've changed the way we operate. I can assure you, most people actually everyone in this call will have a smartphone. And if I were to take you 10 years back, or say 15 years back, that wouldn't be the case. So it actually shows you that the rate of change has actually increased. Now, having set the scene for transformation at a broad level, let me dive into my specific organization and what I do. So the organization that I work for is Australia's largest infrastructure project. It's called the National Broadband Network. It is a government-funded initiative, and the history of this organization started in 2009. So it's a fairly new organization. Back in 2009, the Labour government of Australia said it is their vision to actually provide high-speed broadband access to all Australians. Back in 2009, if you got a speed of say 1 Mbps or 2 Mbps, you were having a good day. Now, you could also argue that back then that was a speed requirement, right? I mean, you could not survive on those speeds today, but back then that was good. And full credit to the government back then. They realized that to actually advance Australia in the global space, internet connectivity, digital revolution was critical. So they ensured that, look, we're going to construct the backbone of this for this to happen. It has costed us $52 billion, one of the most expensive projects in Australia, the largest till date. Now, as an organization, we had to encounter several transformational challenges. Okay, and the mindset of the organization fundamentally changed. In fact, before joining this organization, I would say that, look, something like this, we were, to actually conduct a normal transformation, it would take us maybe 5-6 years. But over here, in a span of, as you can see from this chart, in a span of 5 years, we've had to undertake 5 different transformational challenges, and this wasn't easy. So initially, it was all about building the infrastructure. Then in 2016, 1 year after that started, they said, okay, if you were building, say, 100 connections a week, next week onwards, you had to do 40,000 connections a week. So you just can't operate, at a normal pace. You have to fundamentally rethink your business, kind of like what Apple and Google had to do. We had to fundamentally rethink how did we operate. Then the challenge moved to customer experience. So when you scale at such a rapid rate, something had to give, and that unfortunately was customer experience. And I'm going to talk more specifically about how that worked in pre and post COVID. And at the moment, we're actually evolving into the next phase of the organization, and we'll talk a bit about that later. But when I talk about scale, as you can see from this chart, if we look at financial year 12, when we were doing maybe 1,000 connections a month, we had to fundamentally scale the business across, as you can see through the chart, 6 different types of technologies. So 6 different types of technologies, each with its own complexity, connecting a country the size of Australia, which is actually a continent, and of course, being a political project, there are the political games that happen. So it was never an easy transformation, but to the full credit of the company, they were able to do it. Yes, a lot of money was spent, a lot of time, effort, resources, etc. was spent, but it happened. But when it came to customer experience, this is what I really want to focus on today. So back in financial year 16, when we were scaling at this rapid rate, the DSAT percentage, so DSAT stands for dissatisfaction, which is the percentage of our customers that rated us between a 0 to a 4, that was 32%. Now, back then, the CEO and the board said, folks, this is not acceptable. We have to change. And through a series of complex initiatives, we were able to bring it down to 22%. In FY19, we were able to take it to 18%. And our target, and as you can see, at this stage, we were aiming for incremental improvements, even though we were calling it transformation. What we realized post-COVID is we were actually doing incremental improvements. We said, hey, for FY20, which starts 1st of July 2019 and 30th June 2020, we would be happy if we got to 16%. Now, please remember, these are the percentage of people across Australia that rate us 0 to 4. So we're talking about in the millions over here. So if we could actually shift the dial for those, for a couple of million, we'd be really, really happy. And lo and behold, came COVID. So when the pandemic started in January, Feb, that timeline, we were around 17%. We were like, okay, we might take it to 16%. Any guesses on what the actual number was after COVID? I'm guessing no, so I'll just give you the answer. 12. A single cell, a single virus, which can only be seen through a microscope, was able to take the DSAT percentage from 16 to 12. The board was stunned. The CEO was stunned. The executives were stunned. How is this possible that, something, okay, it is a bad thing. I'm not for a second saying COVID is good. COVID is bad. Thousands and thousands have lost their lives. But how did this fundamentally change our core metric and what we were doing? And that is what I want to quickly focus on. We would have taken another 2 years or more to achieve this result, but COVID did it in under 6 months. Why? Because when we did our analysis of all of this, we realized that internet is an essential service. It has to work. COVID-19 actually bound people together. Our employees started acting and behaving very differently. It was no longer a 9-to-5 job for people. When they were seeing reports on TV, on news, on the internet about people struggling and people dying, they said, okay, it's our job to keep people connected, during such times of hardship. Customers, as a result, started to appreciate our services. So we had people, in the middle of the pandemic, when it was raging in Australia, we had people who, our technicians would take their trucks, in the middle of bushfires, rains, they would be connecting people. They started to appreciate our services. Small faults were, people said, you know what, it's okay. As long as I can work from home and stream some entertainment, they were happier. We had earmarked $256 million for CX activities through special projects, R&D, consulting, etc. But COVID taught us that is the ultimate disruptor. We saved all that money for our company. Transformation takes time and effort. COVID didn't require any of that. Like I said, in under 6 months, it did it. Now, why is all of this relevant as we embark into the future? And remember, this is not the only transformation that this company would do or other companies would do. In fact, I speak to a lot of people every day here, and they say, at the moment, the job market is slow, but come February, March, a lot of companies that are dormant right now, big companies, are going to undergo major transformation initiatives. So a lot of lessons are being learned through COVID. Transformation need not be a time and cost intensive exercise. Like I told you, $256 million, we do not need to spend that kind of money. It has shown that when people come together, great things will happen. And as I said, it's because people banded together and they had this common sense of purpose of doing something for the greater good. These are behaviors that we've never seen before in people. And personally, I don't think in my life, again, I shouldn't say all this, but I've been working for the last 20 years. I haven't seen something like this. I don't know whether something like this will happen again, but people say it's a once in a 100-year pandemic, right? So not sure. Technology, processes, and systems. Any transformation you look at will normally focus on these things, but people are often left out. And what I mean by that is everyone focuses on, okay, what new technology can I bring in? What new process can I bring in? What new system can I bring in? But nobody focuses on, well, how do we bring people on this transformation journey? COVID as an organization taught me and my company that it's all about bringing people together. At the moment, NBN, and we've just made this announcement yesterday, we're at the moment embarking on connecting the remote communities of Australia a project that will take that would again take us time and money, but as per the new plans, we've said, how do we scale this in a much more efficient fashion? This new way of working will be the menu or the secret sauce of how all future companies and transformations will operate. And change management, my final point is this: change management has taken a whole new meaning. Gone are the days when people say, okay, hey, let's just fill this form or template, or let's create a change plan and hope the change works. People realize that in any transformation, change is the first and the most important thing that we need to do. So it's about time we stop focusing on the tangible things like, processes, systems, technology. Yes, continue to focus on that, but start putting your emphasis on people, because engage people is ultimately what will bring your transformation to life. It'll make it successful, it'll cost you less, and it's going to deliver greater value for your customers and your shareholders. With that, I yield it back to Dr. SMITA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ravi. And my area is also business. So, in fact, I could very much relate to what you were trying to say. In fact, in India, we have a very different scenario. You spoke about a company which is supported by the government. And I believe you must be knowing in India, we still don't have a setup like this where government is actually supporting the initiative. Yes, it was started and it has been active also in some of the cities and certain limited spaces, but pan-India exercise, it was not yet into place. But in this pandemic situation, I believe one of the companies which definitely became disruptor, the way the company you spoke about in Australia did, has been Reliance. And in fact, they took over many other competitors, including the government companies, BSNL and MTNL, on account of this customer service experience which they could provide. So there is a lot to learn, though different scenarios, but a lot to learn when you talk about these experiences in Australia, and maybe experiences across continents in other countries as well. So hopefully we'll come back to you again as people will frame questions and will deliberate over your presentation. So now, without taking much time, I will now, I did enjoy your presentation. So
thank you so much.
So now I'll move ahead to the next speaker, Tatiana Karbuchuk, Associate Professor, Department of Government and Society, University of United Arab Emirates. Tatiana, my request to you first will be that please briefly introduce yourself and then talk about your presentation. And the presentation topic of Tatiana is implication of the cultural evolution theory to explain social behavior under COVID-19. Welcome, Tatiana.
Thank you very much, Dr. SMITA. So, thank you very much for the organizers for this opportunity to talk today and to discuss some ideas regarding how we can evaluate people behavior, social behavior under COVID-19. My talk is a kind of attempt to explain how people behave across societies based on the cultural evolution theory by Ronald Inglehart. So I'm coming from the UAE University, where I work for the last 5 years, and before I was working in High School of Economics in Moscow. So I'm Russian originally, and currently I'm based in the UAE. And I would be happy to share some ideas regarding the explanation of social behavior and what are the threats and what should we concentrate on after COVID-19. So without further ado, I would just simply start my presentation. So by September 21st, we had confirmed 30 million cases of COVID-19 and about 1 million deaths reported by World Health Organization. So billion of people faced severe restrictions in their daily lives, so threatened by virus and other unpalatable consequences. And we had a warning from Human Development Report that actually this pandemic situation leads to huge decline in human development on the long run. So there are other many invisible or less visible effects that we will face within the next few years upon the situation is coming back to the normal, hopefully soon. But still, all these invisible effects are not understudied yet. So many governments across the countries try to fight this disease, and they took unprecedented measures or preventive measures to fight coronavirus, and that put people onto multiple lockdowns, so highly limited situations regarding their freedom of movements, and many more. What is surprising is that we can actually see more or less common reactions of the societies and governments across the world. So first, we could see in many countries there was a kind of rejection of the threat by public governmental authorities and by population itself. We could see also slow interventions of governmental measures to ban social gatherings and social distancing in many countries. We can also see differences among different age groups and generations in their attitudes to comply with, for example, mask regimes and so on. So how we can explain the similar patterns of social behavior across different cultures? So I actually want to draw your attention to the theory which was recently republished by Ronald Engelhardt, who was developing the modernization theory since 70s. But in 2018, his book was published on evolutionary modernization theory. So first I will be quickly saying a few words, what does this theory mean and how it explains social behaviors and social transformations across the time. And then I will try to show you the examples of social behavior under COVID-19 that actually reflecting this theory. So the theory explains the global intergenerational value shifts and value changes from materialistic to post-materialistic values. So it's about how people are changing their values from survival to self-expression values. So basically this theory discusses a cultural shift of people's priority from economic and physical safety to conformity to the group norms towards individual freedom to choose how to live their own life. So social values cannot change very fast. It takes actually generations to replace themselves in order to change the values. And what do we see actually? We see that the post-war World War II world is very peaceful, and people actually started taking security for granted. So the core characteristics of modernization makes people life more secure. So for example, what do we see in the recent 50 years? So according to the Human Development Report, we see that incomes are growing considerably, literacy rate is growing across the globe, the life expectancy is growing, the crime rates are declining, so violence is reducing, and actually the people who born after 70s, they are born in the time period where the security is taken for granted, so the survival security. So that is very important according to the theory. So high levels of security allowed for increased individual free choice, so openness to new ideas and tolerance to outsiders among young generations. So more and more people in different parts of the world began to value increased freedom of choice, and that means the rise of emancipative values in the current development society. So which leads actually to the different perceptions and attitudes towards these bonds that this is the governments and public administrations trying to set up in the countries, and in some societies it's not successful. We can see that in US, UK, in some really developed countries, adjusting to this bans and restrictions in a different way. And these restrictions for free movement, meeting relatives, rejections of gatherings, wearing uncomfortable masks and staying home orders are fighted by the younger generations. So younger generations who grew up with a high level of existential security and who have better access to social welfare institutions, higher incomes levels, they are actually taking this individual freedom of choice as a granted and security as for granted. And that means they have different attitudes and different different wish for collaboration with the public limits that were set up by different governments in different countries. So, however, we can't say if this pandemic situation can change values very fast. On the one hand, the values are shifting rather slow, right? And it takes generations and generations once again to believe in that trust, to be open to other cultures, and to be more oriented towards individual values. However, no way the families will forget such fast the threats that they are experiencing currently under COVID-19. So income stability, family stability, so different societal order that will also remain in the memory for some time, and that will be leading our motivations, our values, and explaining our human behavior. So why it's important to pay attention to the security and cultural norms under this theory. So for example, we say that most generations in 2020 on Earth grew up taking security for granted. And indeed, the COVID-19, so it's a shocking threat that came into their lives, and we can see that people reacted differently in their perceptions. And for example, in a very well doing Germany, about 50% of population expressing their worries on economic insecurity, and 80% of the population, like in countries like US, where we can find the highest rates of infection and death tolls. So they're expressing their worries and about security and feelings towards the COVID-19. So also the theory, evolutionary modernization theory, argues that economic and physical insecurity account for increase of xenophobia, strong in-group solidarity, authoritarian politics, and rigid adherence to the group's traditional cultural norms. What does it mean? We will find more and more evidences that people actually express the xenophobic attitudes to different nationalities. We can find like unfavorable views of China or Italy as a first causes of the spread of this disease, for example. And regarding this insecurity and ethnocentric solidarity against outsiders, the migrants actually are facing the most dangerous and position in this field. So basically, when people feel that their survival is insecure, that leads to ethnocentric solidarity against outsiders, who are the migrants in many countries. And we can see that examples from countries like Kuwait, who just simply dismissed migrant workers immediately within 15-30 days. And people lost their jobs. They stayed without any income to survive, without shelters, sometimes no money. And we are speaking here about 258 million of international migrants across the globe. So this is a huge impact on multiple economies where migrants play a huge role in the labor market. So same story about food security and water safety. So which are the basic needs according to the Maslow pyramid for secure survival. And that also leads to different perceptions of insecurity across the countries. And in the countries where this basic needs are in danger, so food security, water security, safe water, sanitation systems, they are actually behaving in the way of pro-materialistic values. So, and we know that, for example, in 180 countries, 90% of the world population, so many children were left without access to schools, and schools mainly providing the basic daily food for poor families, which were taken from that families now. So, and finally, the importance of the talk is here about inequality in the societies and among the countries. So it's not only about the economic inequality in the society, it also relates to the happiness and life satisfaction level, which is very important currently in all societies to have peaceful, sustainable development and successful sustainable development. This evolutionary modernization theory explains how happiness relates to the availability for the people to make free choices, and actually it increases the happiness. So, and in case we have this shift from survival values to self-expression values, improving this freedom of choice, and increasing the level of tolerance. So the happiness in this level of this in the societies is going up. Under the pandemic circumstances, there are a lot of threats to the basic security needs of the people, like I just showed regarding the situation with the food security, safe water, migration, and xenophobia, and many other things. So economic security, of course, for the families. So that's actually postpones the development of the society towards post-materialistic values, cultivating the freedom of choice and happiness, which are leading to the happiness in the society. So that means that COVID-19 not only threatening the economic security, but also the happiness across the world, and that would lead to higher inequalities, causing more inequalities across the globe. So this is my talk for today, and I will be happy to answer any questions at the end of our sessions after all the speakers have completed their presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tatiana. I believe you again raised very pertinent discussion points, specifically about cultural evolution theory, and in order to interpret the current human behavior, which across countries we are experiencing. Each country has its own challenges, but when you look at humans, definitely experiences across the board are same. And the threats which are now possibly becoming and looming over the human society are very, very challenging. So some of those threats also you name. So we will very soon return back to the discussion where possibly we will be putting across some questions to you, but very important talk, and very, very important in today's scenario. Thank you so much, Tatiana. So we'll move to the next speaker for the day. I'll invite Mr. Praveen Gunnar, Assistant Professor, Department of Social Work, University of Mumbai, and PhD scholar at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. He will be talking on impact of COVID-19 on a small marginal farmers in Nanded district of Maharashtra. Welcome, Mr. Praveen.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. SMITA SHUKLA, ma'am. Uh, at the outset, I would like to thank and congratulate the Water Policy Center, entire team of the Water Policy Center for organizing such a wonderful dialogue for like to discuss about the one of the very critical times of critical like phase of our times, and in this like specifically, I would like to thank to Ms. Aruna and Dr. Bavaskar sir for this opportunity to speak in this talk. With this, I would like to start my presentation. I'll be speaking on the impact of COVID-19 on small and marginal farmers. While like this is not a core area of my study during my PhD. My PhD is like the study of my PhD focuses on the concerns of small marginal farmers in Maharashtra, and specifically in the Marathwada region of Maharashtra. But while collecting data, while visiting to several villages with like all the precautions, I have like I have got some observations. I have had some discussions with several people, several villagers, and specifically the small and marginal farmers about their situations, about their experiences during this lockdown. So I'm not being able to move on the another slide. One second, I'll try it again. Yeah, I hope the presentation is visible to all of you.
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So at the premise, the immediate impact of COVID-19 was initially seen in the urban areas, as we all know that like many of the urban peoples have like the virus have first entered in the urban spaces, and from there it got spread across the rural areas and across the like states and districts of the country. The migrated, like the already migrated, reversed back to their natives to protect themselves from the virus. I have purposefully added that question mark in this after this statement, because whether they have returned back because of the because of the virus, or because of the some other concerns like livelihood vulnerability, or homelessness, or poverty, threat about of the government. These are the many other questions which can be taken to that particular situation of the migrants. The sudden lockdown was the havoc for these migrants. Unfortunately, many of them died and gone or going through very critical situations. Many of them have died, and those who are living, they are also like living with a very huge vulnerabilities. Now, many people have realized that how cruel the cities are. Like many people have also talked about the cities, the development, urbanization process of urbanization. So the urbanization process have been critically seen by many developmentalists and many peoples, those who are post-developmental theorists. So they have seen these processes of urbanization, how they are cruel to the people, those who are vulnerable, those who are poor, those who are backward in terms of like economics, in terms of their social situations and all. So now most of the rural peoples have realized that how cruel these cities are, as they haven't gave a space to the poor. They have evacuated, they have like indirectly perhaps in fact forcibly pushed out, these poor have been pushed out of the city forcibly. So, and like of course the rural areas, like later on when they have returned back to their villages, all these migrants, The rural areas welcomed their original inhabitants and accommodated them wholeheartedly, though there was a risk from these migrants to the rural villages. But they, as per the Indian tradition, as per the Indian culture, they have welcomed them wholeheartedly, and they are still living in those villages, and they are being accommodated, though they are living in different situations, but at least they have a secure place to stay in the villages. To go more specific about my presentation, to be more specific about the topic, more than 82% farmers belongs to small and margin category in India. So the section which I am going to focus on, that is small and marginal farmers, which is there in Nanded district of Maharashtra as well. They contribute over 40% of the country's grain production and over half of its fruits, vegetables, oilseeds, and other crops. Much of the global share of food staples such as rice, wheat goes from India, and almost half of the population in India depends on agriculture for their livelihood. This is as per the government figures, but in fact, if we see, like as per the government figures as well, directly dependent, more than half of the Indian population, rural population, directly depend upon the agriculture, but indirectly they are more than 70 or 75% they are dependent, whereas those livelihoods can be categorized as allied agrarian allied activities. But unfortunately, last few decades, the farm sector have witnessed the unending crisis, which is still going on. This led into huge distress amongst farmer and farming sector. More than 3 lakh farmers have taken their lives. This is more than 250,000 since 1995. Only in last year, in 2019, a total of 10,281 farmers and farm laborers died because of the suicide across the country, according to statistics from NCRB, National Crime Records Bureau. And to be very specific about the Marathwada region, which is where the Nanded district is located, and of course the Water Policy Center is also located in the Marathwada region. So 109 farmers committed suicide during the COVID-19 lockdown. This number is reported in the police station. This is the formal number, but the informal number, many farmers or many people couldn't register their suicides or the crimes whichever they have committed in the villages. Like suicide is a crime in India. So those suicides have not been reported to the police stations because of the lockdown or because of the situations at that time. So the number is now the number is less, but the actual number in those areas is very high. So if you look at all these numbers, all these figures, in India, every half an hour, one farmer commits suicides. So this is the situation of farmers, that is specifically small and marginal farmers in India. I mean, in this situation, in this crisis, the farmers are going through. If you go a little more specific about the topic, farmers in Nanded district were expecting a good price after a robust Rabi harvest at that time, like at the time of the lockdown announced by the government of India. The time was the harvesting season of the Rabi crops. So at that time, farmers were like expecting that a good harvest, good price after the harvest, and they will have all the normal situations as they usually have. But this time, like instead, some bad weather and the lockdown have left them with huge losses, and of course the further indebtedness. The talk which I have had with these peoples is based on group discussions with farmers in different villages. The participants were mostly from small and marginal farming category. Most of the farmers are totally dependent upon the sale of their allied activities to feed their families. So unless if they will not have a proper food or regular sale of their produces, they will not be able to feed their children, they will not be able to feed their families. So this is the situation of these poor farmers in most of the locations in Nanded district of Maharashtra. So I have categorized the farmers, farmers, those who are producers of different things in agriculture. They are like vegetable farmers, milk producers, fruit producers, grain producers, poultry and goat farmers and other, and of course the agricultural laborers also have been seen or discussed in this particular area. So what vegetable farmers have gone through? The vegetable farmers witnessed the worst hit of lockdown as the market was completely closed, completely shut due to the pandemic, and they didn't had any, I mean, they couldn't even like take out their produce from their, even from their farm to the villages. So they had to like cut that produce at the farm itself, and they have to like through that to the animals or to the other I mean, other things. So usually what farmers do, like they take lots of loans from the private money lenders, not the informal money lenders, and they sow their the seeds in the agriculture, and they whenever they get harvest, whenever they get I mean yield from their agriculture, they sell that to them, they repay the loans. So that is the situation is usually seen in across the farming communities in Marathwada or in specific to Nanded district. Due to sudden break in supply chains, these farmers couldn't send their produce to the market. Perishability of vegetables couldn't save the cold storages, couldn't be saved by the cold storages, as the non-availability of cold storages where they can store, where I mean these are all the perishable products. So these products couldn't be stored by the cold storages. So that is also one of the reason they had to go through the huge loss about this particular category. Milk producers, like many of the milk producers families livelihood are totally dependent upon the sale of milk. Now it's been more than 6 months, they are still struggling to regularize the sale of their milk. Hotels, tea points, dairy shops were completely closed from March to till July, and now also the like the restrictions are still there on these points. But certainly the government is like taking out the restrictions. But still, the regularization of milk production, the regularization of like milk chain hasn't been yet started. So that these farmers also have like seen a very huge loss of their produce. Fruit farmers, so usually in those areas wherever I have visited, they produce the watermelon, banana, mango, guava, and these particular crops are like they usually sow these crops, these fruits on 1 or 2 acres of their land. So in that case, like they expect that these are the very high costly fruit grains, because many farmers, many small and marginal farmers do not get do not have courage to have this kind of crops in those locations. But some of them have had courage to like sow the watermelon, banana, mango, and guava kind of fruits in those locations. But unfortunately, the lockdown, the COVID-19 like overall situation have like hit at them very badly, and they had to throw the products to their in their farms. Then like if you see producers such as like other crop producers, wheat, jawar, gram, jawar is sorghum, which is called in English, gram, oil seeds, turmeric are the rabi crops, which were like about to harvest at the time of before the time of the lockdown. The timely sale of these products is very essential in those locations. Most of the farmers are indebted, and they have to repay the loans on the given time. If they will not be able to sell all these crops, all these products or yields, they will not be able to sell. They will not. I mean, they couldn't be able to sell their products, so they have been late to repay the loans whichever they have taken from the private money lenders. And as most of we know that like the private money lenders will not leave them or they will not give any subsidies or any kind of like reliefs to them. They will charge it more and more, and they will put them into a very distressed situations where these farmers can go to the highest level of distress, and they may commit suicide also. So that kind of situations also have been seen in most of the amongst most of the farming communities. Actually, if they will if they will be able to repay the loans previously taken loans, then only they can avail the another loan for the another season of crops. So the monsoon season, most of the farmers couldn't get the the loans or the I mean the inputs because of the lack of money or lack of the loans. So many of them couldn't so the, and they have to take like more priced loans also. So that is also one of the major reason, major problem have been seen about this particular category. As we all know, the rumors about poultry and goat farmers, rumors about chicken meat have had a very bad impact on these farmers. Like many poultry farms and goat farmers have like collapsed, and they had witnessed a huge loss in their businesses. So they have come into the very poor situations. As we have had, I mean, in the today's session in the inaugural session by Professor Yunus, he has said that the humans are quite opportunistic. Humans are quite selfish. So this selfishness, this opportunisticness, have been seen by the private buyers, the private money lenders. So they have taken this opportunity, this situation as an opportunities, and they have again they have started exploiting these farmers again in terms of buying their products with a very cheaper prices, in terms of giving them loan with a very high cost, high rates of interest. So this kind of opportunities, this kind of selfishness have been seen in the amongst the private buyers and money lenders. They have literally looted these farmers. Like even I have also visited several shops of the private buyers. There they have, like, the lockdown was till 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So till that time, whatever farmers will go to sell their products in those shops, they have been asked at a very cheaper price of, they couldn't I mean they couldn't meet even the input cost of their crops. So that was the situation have been seen, and that was one of the very very exploitative attitude of the people, those who were buyer and the so-called uh, like uh, people, those who claim themselves as they are the savers of farmers. Now, the further challenges in front of these farming communities, and of course the labor communities. Now, how they will survive, like with the huge indebtedness, with the huge challenges, with the livelihood insecurity. I mean, many people have called farming as a business, but this is not a business. This is the source of livelihood of the people, those who are dependent upon that. So what they will do with these particular situations, like with this havoc like situations. Repayment of loan is also one of the challenges in front of these farmers, as they are totally depend upon the monsoon season now. Health facilities, as we all know, in most of the parts of India, in rural areas specifically, this is quite like worrying factor, and people are not at all the government health facilities are not at all accessible, or people's attitudes towards health facilities, government health facilities are very poor, and the private health practitioners are looting the farmers or the poor of those locations. Children's education, since today morning we are having lots of discussions about the education. So I mean, what about these students, the children's education? Most of them are not having Android phones, most of them are not having internet connectivity, most of them are not even having electricity is also one of the major challenges in the rural locations. So how they will avail the online education, and if hoping so that the situation will be normalized. So later on, the health risks of these children, who will take care of all those things, because they don't even have any kind of out-pocket expenses or the insurances which are usually taken by the formal people, those who are economically well. One of the very important point which I have added here, that is courage. Now, like those who have lost, those who have made some experiences by coming out of their traditional ways of farming, how they will gain that courage again. That is one of the major challenges. How they will take the risks of having businesses, having small kind of like steps such as poultry farm, goat farms, or some kind of like milk production, or milk, some dairy productions. So how that kind of courage will be gained by these farmers, that is also one of the challenges in this situation. Distress and suicides. As I said already, that many people are committing suicides that are not being reported in the police stations or the formal mechanisms, because of some the awareness about the awareness, or because of the lockdowns. I mean, previously also many people have couldn't report the suicides. And at this present time, since last 8 days, Marathwada, which is one of the very drought prone area of Maharashtra and perhaps India, and in this particular time, like since last 8 days, the huge water logging in the different fields of the farmers have destroying the crops, and many farmers are like having the crop loss because of this particular like crop this particular water logging. So already farmers are have gone through this particular situations, this particular issues, and now these situations, the water logging or the heavy rainfall in those locations, are creating manifold challenges in front of these farmers. Some of the things which I have drawn to, like, which can mitigate the situation. Employment guarantee scheme, that is called Mahatma Gandhi National Employment Guarantee Act. That has to be like very strictly implemented in all the locations, the rural locations. Which is again one of the concern. Focus on agro-based industries to create job opportunities. As Professor Yunus also today morning was focusing on that. People, those who were like reversely migrated, they shouldn't reverse back to the cities now. They should have the job opportunities at their places only. They should have the they should have their settlements there itself, so that like the same pre-COVID situation shouldn't come again in their lives. At least now the government should have balanced focused on rural and urban localities. Usually we have seen across the country or across the different countries, we have seen that the focus of the government have always been more on the urban localities. So now at least governments of all the countries should realize that the focus should be on both of the areas, that is rural and urban areas. Facilities in rural areas such as health, education, transportation, market links should be provided. Easy access to farmer credit system should also be there, and many people have also raised this particular concern. Agro processing units based on the crop yields of those areas, like what is happening nowadays, in most of the areas of Marathwada, that like crops in those locations, the crops are being like turmeric is being produced in that location, and the industries of turmeric are there in different locations. So that kind of things should not be there. Now at least people should have, like, whatever crops gets ill in those locations, there should be some production processing units of those areas. And media attention is one of the very questionable. As per my measurements, most of the like top media channels nowadays are totally busy in some of the like very like which are not at all concerned issues of the poor peoples of the or like 90% of the peoples of this country. So such kind of issues are being highlighted on media, and the issues which are related to people's livelihood, which are the issues which are related to people's lives, the issues which are related to people's like survival, these kind of issues are not being highlighted by media. So that kind of sensitization amongst media channels should be there. So these are the things which I have observed, which I wanted to tell in this particular talk. And at the end, I would like to end my presentation with this particular quote given by Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. What he says, he said in one of his poems that food is a source of wealth, but the food production is source of endless miseries. So these endless miseries are still continued in most of the like farmers of our country. So with this, I would like to thanks again to all of you for patiently listening to the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Praveen.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very important presentation and discussion you have done. Before I think we'll be putting across the questions of participants, we will do a quick sum of whatever we have discussed today, because these are all varied topics and all very, very important in reference to what has been this symposium and conference theme. This symposium was supposed to initiate dialogue on COVID-19 and the specific impact of COVID-19 on various sectors. What has been the global response, and how do we enhance resilience? And possibly in months to come and years to come, possibly how are we going to look forward to issues of survival during this pandemic situation. So to begin with, before I give my comments and observations, I'd like to thank NES Ratnam College, the organizing team, Yunus Center, participating entity and organizing team, and Venuganga Foundation. I believe during these tough times, such kind of interdisciplinary discussion was very, very important. Going beyond boundaries which sometimes academics sets for us, management or political science or sociology, we sometimes need to dismantle those boundaries so that different thoughts come on the table. And this symposium, this conference actually has created that kind of forum. So I thank the entire organizing committee for coming out with some such kind of very important and well needed discussion forum. I'd like to make my first observation on presentation of Mr. Praveen. He spoke on COVID-19's impact on construction industry, and he gave many observations related to his experience of working in the construction industry. One question which I'd like to put to Mr. Praveen, definitely you can answer later, not immediately, will be, you spoke about various stages of process of industrialization, automation, etc. And you kind of created a sketch for construction industry, that how the progress has happened over a period of time. You spoke about water and steam, then electricity, and then you spoke about how today when you look at industry, it is based on a lot of intervention of artificial intelligence and data analytics. I'd like to understand from you, what's your take on that when you look at your industry, construction industry, definitely adoption of technology and what is pertinent in today's time, that is adoption of AI, etc. is all okay. But how do you look at impact of the same on society? Because I believe even in your presentation, you spoke about that how this is going to cut down on job opportunities. So the opportunities for humans in the industry are going to go down. How do you view that? I'd like to definitely understand from you. And I did enjoy your presentation, so thank you so much. Olga, you spoke about society and reaction of society to COVID-19 pandemic, and you pointed out how discontent has increased, anxiety has increased. And in order to match up to these challenges, it's very, very important for us to understand that what is the source and appreciate the concerns then only possibly the address to this anxiety and distress can be made. You also spoke about that access to medical services is a challenge everywhere. You are based in Russia, so you were speaking about your experiences which you are having in your country, but I believe the same experiences existing in India. So definitely you have raised pertinent points, and I like to understand from other participants that what they have to express as a thought on your points of deliberation, cross-country experiences when we look at. Mr. Ravi Ramachandran, your presentation on the company which you are working for in Australia, and the business experience which you had when your company has been building up internet connectivity across Australia and funded and supported by Government of Australia. So you spoke about how you have been able to enhance customer experiences during this pandemic. But here, one question to you from my side. Again, you can answer this later. Don't you feel that pandemic, because internet was a must, pandemic created an absolute need for internet services, which you also pointed out in your presentation. And because internet was must and a need, if it was being provided, customers felt happy. There was no disruption, customers felt happy. But will this dissatisfaction not again increase once we are out of COVID-19? So is your company looking at that kind of situation as well? Okay, so that I'd like to understand. And just one observation, when you talk about business transformation, you need disruption. In your industry, possibly a big disruptor has been COVID pandemic, and after it ends, how do you will like to continue to sustain, because that again will be a challenge for you. So that is something I'd like to know from you. Tatiana, I enjoyed your presentation. You spoke about cultural evolution theory and you linked it to COVID-19 pandemic, and you again pointed out some very, very important observations which are being experienced by all of us across societies, no matter which country we are in, whether it is Russia or India or the country which you are based right now in, which is UAE. So you spoke about how income stability, which was kind of norm across countries, developed markets, UAE, etc., suddenly has been disrupted. How the family stability also is disrupted, and how rise in income insecurity possibly is leading to anxiety, depression. In addition to that, increase in feeling of xenophobia, authoritarian policies are growing, ethnocentric solidarity is increasing, and these are real threats to society. Here you spoke about how do we survive, and you definitely linked it to by saying that in case we give more opportunities for self-expression, can that lead to better strategy for survival? But then my question to you will be, when we talk about self-expression, and today the medium for self-expression is internet, where on account of anonymity which sometimes internet offers, the social media platforms offer, in fact you can say anything, and sometimes what you say may be extremely xenophobic, maybe extremely ethnocentric. So don't you think that when we talk about self-expression and there are no limits on that, maybe further disruption of the society may increase? What has been your feeling on that? Social media influence on xenophobia, self-expression, and possibly its impact on some of these things. And finally, Mr. Praveen Gunnar, you spoke about impact of COVID-19 on farmers, Nanded district, and you again raised some very strong issues which farmers have been facing. Say, for example, those who are producing perishable products couldn't sell their products during pandemic. Entire crop of what they had produced got destroyed. This was applicable to vegetable producers, fruit producers, milk producers. You also spoke about challenge for food grain producers who couldn't sell on time and the loan liability they faced. You spoke about poultry farmers and the kind of challenge they have encountered until now, possibly because the consumers have become very conscious and they are not buying meat the way they used to buy. They're not buying poultry products. So there is a challenge out there. And you spoke about challenge of getting fresh loans. You spoke about challenge of other farm loans. You spoke about related challenges, health, loan repayment, education of children, continuity of the same, and now floods in Marathwada district. You gave certain solutions. You said maybe Manrega can be one of ways to tackle this, or agro-based industries, etc. From my side, my domain is business, and interdisciplinary discussion, when it happens, definitely it creates room for greater discussion. So question from my side to you will be, there is this concept of producer companies in business where producers can come together. So small and medium farmers can come together and create producer companies. And there are in fact many in Maharashtra. In fact, Maharashtra has been leading state in terms of producer companies. And our experience as consumers who are living in mega cities has been that this pandemic for the first time made farm to fork successful. That is, those who were producers were able to connect directly to the consumers, but definitely there they needed some strength. It was through certain producer companies that experience was possible. So what do you think can be implication in case such kind of models can also be tried out? So that will be my question. And I'll not say now much. I think all of you were brilliant. All of you are experts in your own domain, and all of you contributed immensely to what this conference was meant for. This conference was meant for initiating dialogue on COVID-19 and its sectoral impact, global response, how do we enhance resilience. So now floor is yours, and I'll request now one by one, like one of you can speak. So can we go in the order of your presentation? Mr. Praveen, in case there is any other question to you, that also I'll put across. Can we start with you? Is Mr. Praveen, you are there? Can you unmute yourself? Is Mr. Praveen there, first presenter of the day? Okay. So I'll move to the next speaker, Olga.
Okay. In order to answer your question, I would like to say that I suppose that the different access to medicine and medical services becomes a main reason for social discontent during COVID-19. What I can say about Russia? Actually, in Russia, all people received medical services, but if you are rich and have more money, you received better services. And if you are a simple person who just asked about assistance, you can become, a patient of a clinic, even if you have no COVID-19, and spend there about 2 months, for example, whereas you are without any problems with COVID. But yes, some people that had COVID, they also received service, but here I would say that I also compared our situation not only in Russia but also with the United States of America and Western Europe. And as we know, for example, that in the United States of America there was very many deaths due to COVID-19, and people who are without money, they didn't receive necessary assistance. So here, of course, social inequality influence on your possibility to be healthy and happy, as our, how to say, our reporter told today. I told about, I tell about Tatiana, but we in fact, we have different level of assistance even in Russia in accordance with your ability to pay or not pay for medical services. This is my answer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Olga. Any other question if there is for Olga? In the message window, I cannot see any other question which is posted to you, Olga. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I believe, Mr. Praveen, now you can speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. And the question raised by you about the employment cut is very important. And as per a recent study, it is estimated that this introduction of new advanced technologies in construction sector will cut about 60 to 70% jobs. So these conventional jobs, which are basically at the lower level, site level jobs, which are generally opted by the low skilled person, so they will face joblessness in coming 5 to 10 years. But what will happen because of introduction of new technology, new set of job will be created in a new domain, but that domain will be highly technical. So new skill set will be required to perform the job responsibilities. So I have fear that because of introduction of technology, this will bring it will cause a uneven social development, and the lower strata of our society will face a severe job issue. That's my answer, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Praveen. In fact, what you are saying is definitely is a matter of concern. And I don't know how much is the seriousness of policymakers on this issue, because skill generation itself is a challenge in India. Quickly changing the education policy, which matches the requirements of emerging trends, that's still not happening in India. And specifically for those who will be losing out, reskilling them itself again is going to be a challenge. And are we really ready as a society for that? And this is a very India specific challenge. There are certain other countries which are already doing it. So it's a matter of concern. Thank you so much, Mr. Praveen. As I stated, I did enjoy your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ravi Ramachandran, can we now have you? Yes.
Sure. So I think you had raised a very important question, and it's a question that as an organization we are actually facing as we speak. Now, the way I describe this is there is a model called the Kano model by Professor Noriaki Kano from Japan. I don't know if you've heard of it. And what that, I mean, at a super high level, it says that today's innovation becomes tomorrow's expectation, right? So a simple example is phones and cameras. 15 years ago, if somebody said, hey, you know, your phone will have a camera through which you can take high definition pictures, you'd laugh and you'd say, wow, that'll be a feature that maybe 1 in 100 people might get. Whereas today it has become a basic expectation. I can assure you everyone in this call will have a phone, and that phone will have a camera through which you can take high definition pictures. So at NBN, the challenge we are facing is exactly that. So today, while we can say, hey, we've got the DSAT down to 13%, the challenge is staying there, sustaining it. Because tomorrow, if it becomes 14% or higher, then what has happened is, we've gone back. Whereas if you look at it, our target was 16. So we can still say, okay, you know what, we were 17 before, and now we brought it to 12. It's risen to 13. That's fine, but we're still below target. Customers don't work by that logic. That's how businesses run. But for customers, from a psychological perspective, anything that goes over 13 is bad. That's how they view it. So our challenge is to maintain it. And this is why I think post-COVID organizations, especially like ours that's going through rapid transformation, need to be quick learning organizations. What that means is you need systems, practices, processes in place where learnings are captured. Those learnings are fed into the business machine again and made sure that it is incorporated into work instructions, training, etc. Because this just cannot be a once-off initiative, because transformation is a project across the globe. Transformation is a project. Yeah, you might be transforming a system, process, and organization, but it'll have a start and an end date. Post every transformation, there should be some sort of a system or a mechanism to capture those lessons learned. That's what we're trying to do right now, is trying to feed those lessons into the operations arms of the business, so that those practices can be taken forward. Easier said than done, though, because in any large organization, and I'm sure all of you will realize that there are so many factors that will kind of take you this side or that side. So trying to stay the course is the hard part. But I fully acknowledge your concern, and it is definitely something on our radar.
Ma'am, you're muted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ravi. Thank you so much. I do not see any other participants' question for you right now. So I'll move to the next speaker of the panel.
Yes.
Yeah, Tatinia.
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. So I got two questions, one from Dr. SMITA, the moderator of the session, and one from Professor Olga. So I tried to answer Olga's questions in the chat. So actually you can see my answer. So I will continue with Dr. SMITA questions regarding the social media effects and influence on xenophobia and further disruptions, right, in the societies. So indeed, social media plays a huge role now, especially in the younger generations. So they feel more freedom there to express the ideas and other stuff. And we see that many countries actually they reacting to this issue in a different way. So in some countries, we can find the strict restrictions on expressing any xenophobic ideas in the online public space. And actually, for example, in the UAE, there are the fines, and police is monitoring what is and who is saying or expressing any kind of disruptive messages. So in other countries, we can see less monitored reaction by the police or government and so on. But what I wanted to agree with you that social media help people to organize for different movements more easy. Easier, right? So to either it is a protest or it's any other social movements towards or against some kind of actions or events in the country. So indeed, social media is now a big platform to organize different type of social movements and share ideas, express ideas, and it might be a kind of a disease itself. So when the thinking and ideas are transforming easily, especially to the young mindsets as young generations. So absolutely true. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Yeah, and I also went through your answer, which I believe Olga had asked you, the question which Olga had placed. Even this issue which Olga raised as a question, I think that's very important. In India also, when we look at young generation means those who have been born after era 1980s, etc. Yes, this new experience has been extremely challenging for them, and though I cannot make this comment because there is no data to back what I'm trying to say at the moment, but yes, there has been a trend where suicide is being considered as one of the options to escape, and we are witnessing some of the cases out here, but I'll not like to generalize because still data is not good enough to make an observation on the same. But yes, that's a challenge as well. So thank you so much, Tatinya, for your participation. I'll move to Praveen Kunnar. Yes, what would you like to say?
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. You have raised very pertinent questions related to my presentation. Your first question, perhaps it is not a question, it is actually a suggestion, which is one of the very good suggestion have been come across from many of the agricultural experts, that having cooperative farming, like all the small and marginal farmers will come together, and if they will have cooperative farming or cooperative like companies, producing companies, would be one of the very good like thing for them to come out of their distress or critical situations. But unfortunately, in those locations in Marathwada or in most of the areas of that location, this has been somehow successful in some of the parts of Western Maharashtra, but in Marathwada or in Vidarbha have been not successful. The reason behind this is usually that the farmers are saying that we don't even have a like small capital to have a little investment in anywhere, because they are still struggling for the livelihood. Hence, they are not taking those initiatives, those that kind of courage to have producing companies or getting consensus for having cooperative farming. So that is one of the challenge, but this is one of the very good suggestions which may take them out from the situations which they are going through so far. And the other comment which you have had, that farm to fork concept, this particular concept is I personally feel that this is one of the very ideal concept, where like we feel that people be like living in cities or people living in households, they will feel that if we will have the fresh products or fresh produce from the farm to directly to their kitchens, so that will be one of the very good thing for farmers also. But unfortunately, if you see the agrarian chain, in that chain, there are many actors which perform, which share the cost of that particular product. So this have been tried by some of the people, some of the companies like Reliance Fresh, Godrej, like Star Basket, some of the vegetable, these some of the business models. In that too, in some of the areas like Pune or like nearby areas of Mumbai, but that also has lots of challenges, because these people, those who directly go to the farm or to like directly, in Marathi we call it directly on the bandhavar. So on that places, their choices, their like prices are very much differ. So the agriculture product will not be similar. The crops will not be similar as they expect. So these are the challenges. But if the farm to fork will concept will actually work in the areas, will be really good. So yeah, this is my answer to both of your queries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Praveen. And I also completely agree with you that saying is one thing, but getting it implemented is altogether different. And small and medium farmers, I think the biggest challenge for them is they don't have enough financial resources. In addition to that, understanding of how possibly markets work and supply chain can be created for their product to reach cities itself is a challenge for them. So till this aspect is not also looked into, maybe the farm to fork model will not be extremely successful. So if these two things can be taken care of, maybe it may work well. But at the moment, whatever other challenges are one which are actually existing, and farmers have been hit, in addition to when we look at industries being hit, agricultural sector also has been hit badly. So I believe for all the participants today, speakers today, it must have been a nice experience. We heard from different industry representation. So we had one sector representation, agriculture. We had representation from broadband industry. We had representation from construction industry. Professors, faculty members who are understanding and researching on society's social aspects, view of them. So it has been a very, very enriching experience. So from my side, that is all. And I pass on now the forum to organizers.